From the Lanark, Leeds, Grenville, and addictions and mental health, in the studio with me now are Afia, Asanta, as well as Isabella, Riman, and they are addictions counselor and case manager. We are going to talk about the individual group overview and the content. I know last time we ran out of time. We really did, because there's so many more questions that could have been asked and we didn't have the time. But you're now back.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to be back.
Hey, it's our pleasure. We love this because we're learning. And if we're learning, we're happy.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of the group sessions?
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
cut that. So basically, the groups are there to provide support, provide education for clients, members in the community that are struggling with substance use, and whether they're in active addiction or they've stopped using and they're in recovery, it's open to all to be able to get the support they need. And we meet clients where they're at, as what we talked about the last time.
Yes.
And so we try to provide support, and support means whatever the clients need at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then eventually going into a group environment where they can share with other people, as well as learn what other coping mechanisms other people have used to help them.
And it helps them too, because they're, as you said, they're in a group environment. So there's, other individuals going down kind of similar paths, and all of them have somewhat of the same goal or a similar goal, right? So it's really good to make that, peer connection for them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about anger and addictions and the topics that we cover in these groups, in those particular groups. So for anger, what sort of things? I can understand how people become agitated and then anger takes over. How do you discuss anger with them, and how do you give them the tools that they need to help them?
So with our anger group, it's 8 weeks. And so each week is devoted to a particular strategy to deal with anger, or sometimes it's multiple strategies that we talk about to deal with anger. And so we do teach clients when they're in the group how to deal with their anger. So anger really isn't the problem, it's the expression of the anger. Anger is an emotion that we all experience. If you know somebody that doesn't get angry at all, I would be a little concerned, because they're probably bottling up a lot of emotions down when pushing it down. So anger isn't the issue, it's the expression of anger. So the goal of that group is to help clients find more healthy and appropriate ways to express the anger. Not to shut it down, not to have explosive moments, but express it appropriately and be able to do it so in a healthy manner.
So rather than yelling, we should be saying, now give yourself a moment to cool down and then start to discuss why that the person is angry.
That's part of what we talk about in the anger group, yes.
Sometimes it's easier said than done, though.
100%.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
But over time, if you use those strategies, it will kick in, and you will just automatically say, oh, give me a moment.
Yeah. And it's just about, giving the clients the tools. We call it the tools for the toolbox. So when you have we're human. We all get angry. We all have, things that upset us or frustrate us. It's just about having those tools to kind of pull out when you need them to handle situations maybe a little bit better than you might have in the past, right? So
True enough.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience.
It
is.
It is. And like you mentioned, it's not easy the first time you start.
No.
It's like learning any new skill. If you learn to play the piano the first time, it's harder. You're making mistakes and all of that. But you have to practice to get better at it. And so it's harder if you have like your way of expressing your anger your entire life is explosive or like yelling, as you mentioned.
Yes.
But now we're learning to delay the reaction and take a step back. It's not going to happen overnight. You just need to keep at it and try more often. And then before you know it, that's your new habit.
Wow. Like it. Okay. What is conflict resolution? What is that model?
That is part of the strategies that we discuss in the anger and addiction group. I wrote it down here because it's quite lengthy, so I'm going to walk you through it.
All right.
So the conflict resolution model is basically a way to resolve conflicts. It's in the name. Okay. The first point is to identify the problem. So if I have a problem with you, I know exactly what the problem is, and you need to be specific with the problem. It can be something general as I don't like everybody, right? It has to be very specific what the problem is. And then the next step is to identify your feelings. How is that problem making you feel? So if it's somebody that's nagging at you at work, so the problem there is the nagging. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel insecure. It makes me feel unappreciated. Right. So name the exact feelings that the problem is making you feel. And then the next step is to identify the impact that is causing. So if, again, the nagging, if someone is nagging at you, you're feeling insecure, you're feeling unappreciated, it's affecting your work. You come to work, you seem tense. You're not able to do your job. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's the impact. Then the next step is you decide whether to resolve the problem or not. Because sometimes not all problems need to be addressed. Sometimes you need to let it go. And so if you deem it worthy of resolving, then you go on to the next step, which is the last one. You need to set up a time and a date with the other party and then give them a heads up. You don't want to blindside them into or going to confront them in a way that's accusatory or, put them in a defensive mode, right? So you prep them a little, let them know this is an issue that you'd like to talk about, agree on a set date and time, and then you can both have a meaningful discussion and then hopefully get it resolved or get to a compromise that works for both parties.
Because that person probably doesn't even realize that they're nagging.
Exactly.
And that's how they're coming across as being a nag. And, then, but sometimes we don't do that.
Again, it's not easy. It's not an easy skill. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that is. All right. Explain what will be discussed and help the clients to understand there's a connection that is between the thought of a negative emotion and how to challenge that negative emotion. Like, I mean, what nagging could be to me may not be the same to what how you would perceive it. That's basically what we're talking about. So, okay, explain, please.
Happy to. So the negative thought process, we work through that with our group with CBT, which is Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Depression and Anxiety. Okay. So it's a psychoeducational group. We talk about some coping strategies, how to manage our anxiety and depression better. Like we talked about the toolbox, having those tools in the toolbox. So what the CBT for anxiety and depression is essentially having those negative thoughts and challenging them. So instead of believing, everyone's judging me, nobody likes me, whatever, it's, okay, what evidence do I have to back up those thoughts? Give yourself 3 different A, B, C, D evidence. And then I guarantee by the end of challenging that negative thought, you'll realize that it wasn't all that rational, right? Yes. So that's kind of the idea behind the negative thought process.
I love the idea that you have told our viewers and myself about the group sessions. I think they must get so much out of having to be in a group of people and exchanging ideas and what is happening in their own lives.
They really do. And I hear all the time from our clients, they're like, oh, what so-and-so said really resonated with me. And I got a lot from, so like people exchanging, their story or things that they have been through or things that they're struggling with, you never know what the other person beside you is going through. And that might really help them in that moment. So it's just, it's wononderful.
We always think we're the only one.
I know.
Yeah. Ladies, thank you for coming in, sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. And I will not be yelling anymore. I'll behave.